Bloody hell. This week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure may have just introduced me to my new favorite stand. Metallica was awesome. Nero was awesome. Dovio was awesome. This episode was incredible. I definitely think this was probably one of, if not the top and most brutal fights JoJo has seen. There was a lot of censorships in previous parts of JoJo, but this was brutal. The idea of a stand that can basically control the iron in things, be it a human body to just the world in general where iron is pretty much everywhere. Essentially, you could remove the iron from a person's body and just watch them die as they won't be able to carry oxygen around. This power is ridiculous, and even though I had a very strong hunch that obviously Nero wasn't going to win because it just felt like Doppio had a much more relevance in the endgame because of the split personality with the boss, that it felt like he would make it to the end stages rather than a man with a cool-ass stand. But I have to say, in terms of being the final opponent for this other gang, this man was terrifying, and I don't recall being as kind of worked up, as nervous watching a fight play out, because even though I was rooting for Nero, it was still unnerving because I didn't really know how I wanted this fight to truly play out, and it was brutal. It was ridiculous, and I love the creativity with this stand. Like, I knew it had to do something with controlling metal in some way, shape, or form, but when we start off seeing him basically camouflaging himself, I was very confused at what he was doing, and to see how he was controlling iron, and just the idea of how he can reattach the limbs, kind of similar to Giorno, but in a much more, I would say, brutal and awesome way, while literally just stapling shit back together with the iron. This man was awesome. He was brutal and he was menacing. I loved the voice acting. It was just really felt like a hopeless situation for Doppio. Even though I figured he would somehow get away, I was really curious to see where this would go, because this man is so interesting. He's so unique because of the split personality and how he's very weak, but then he can also gain that confidence. And how are you going to outplay someone who kind of had the upper hand? And really, he had the upper hand this match. The idea that he kept basically summoning scissors through his mouth or just slicing up his head, and to see how they kind of visualized Doppio seeing King Crimson's kind of future sight while kind of looking through his hair, I thought was actually a really nice touch to kind of differentiate itself from the boss and how he sees through the past and how this kind of split personality works with it. It was crazy. I love just how, even though it was so brutal, it didn't feel like they were just trying to go as gory as possible for the spectacle, but rather to prove that this is a man that the gore is needed to get across what he can do. The idea that you can literally just change the iron in someone's body, to have scissors just slit open your throat, or to basically just ruin your entire life and make you just feel like death while you remove the iron from your body, that's brutal, and it needs to not be censored. So the fact that they got around censorship and David Production could really highlight the brutality, it makes Metallica so goddamn terrifying. And I definitely think this might be my favorite stand, even though we really only got to see it one time in a battle. We got a taste of it kind of foreshadowing in previous episodes, but we really only got to see one fight with this stand. But I think one fight was all it needed to get across how cool this stand fight was, and I can understand why so many people were anticipating this fight. Something I love with this part of JoJo, and usually I don't love this type of hype, but for JoJo with Golden Wind, I think the hype usually lives up, where you have so many people with their different favorite stand fights and just stands and users, and I keep hearing oh, this is my favorite one, this is my favorite one, and it really feels like every week I hear someone say, this is going to be my favorite arc finally adapted, and it doesn't feel like the hype is undeserved. It really feels like the hype gets lived up to when you watch JoJo unfold each week, and that's not something you get to say with many anime, where you see oh, everyone's hyping up an arc, and then you go in, you're yeah, it was a fine arc, but it wasn't anything too special. With Golden Wind, I honestly feel like every time I see someone hype up the next fight being their favorite or will be even better than the last, even if I don't think it's better than the last, I still say I understand the hype. This was just creative, it was brutal, it was so different from the last, and I understand why this could be someone's favorite part, or just arc, or just fight in JoJo, either within this part, or just overall within the entire franchise. Just the sheer creativity of how you can play around with stands, having a stand inside you and just essentially controlling the fabric of everything in the world, because how do you defeat someone with iron? And I think the way they defeated him was actually pretty cool. It disappointed me. I really did wish that he could survive, because I just think seeing how he would go up against Bruno's gang would have been really cool, because that stand is awesome. But I think the idea of essentially letting the magnetism kind of go towards his gang so then Aerosmith could come in and blast the only thing that would be breathing, which would be Nero, because Doppio had all his oxygen essentially removed from his body. That is such a creative way, and even though I hate the outcome, I kind of love it all at the same time. Even though I was disappointed by seeing that little bastard fly up and machine gun our man down, I was like, I can't even truly be mad. I can be disappointed, but I can't be mad at how they outplayed this man, because he was winning the battle, and if Bruno's gang wasn't there, he would have been dead, 100%. His head would have been exploded, but we see that it wasn't just like his head got exploded, it's that his blood went on his head and it looked like he lost part of his brain. Like, you gotta love the creativity and brutality to how they get around this kind of whole future sight and just how they defeat an impossible situation and turn it on its head. It's not just like they punched harder than the other guy, they used their intelligence to outplay a stronger opponent, and that's what I love about Golden Wind, is how it's not just punch harder than the other guy, it's how you outplay and out-manipulate each other. Honestly, this fight was awesome. It really only needed one part. A lot of fights, I like it when they do go 2 or 3 episodes just to really flesh it out, but when you have two such ridiculous stands, King Crimson and Metallica, you only need one episode. You don't need it to go any longer than that, just one episode to really get across two of the most powerful stands we've seen, and how could you outplay? Because even though you have someone who can essentially control time and erase it for people, when you have a man who can essentially camouflage himself perfectly and just control your iron in your blood, it's kind of a ridiculous situation, and they almost feel equal in this situation. And if it wasn't for the split personality, it probably would have been a lot more one-on-one there. But I like how the boss can conceal his identity with this kind of split personality, and how you have a man so determined to get revenge for his group, because similar to Bruno, he loved his companions, and the fact that everyone got killed, he deserves his revenge the same way Bruno would deserve revenge for any of his fallen comrades. So that's what I like, is because even though they might be the antagonist group, you got to understand their gang and their kind of communication and friendship and honestly family bond that they have, and you were rooting for him just because you understood, like, if the roles were reversed and this was Bruno or Giorno, you would be rooting because of what they've lost, if they've lost as much as this other gang did. And that's what's really great about the Hitman team, is you got to understand them on a personal level. So as you explore the really cool and creative stands, you also got to understand them on a personal level. So that's why I think the biggest reason I was rooting for this guy, even though I loved his stand, it was like, I felt like he deserved the revenge. And I thought that was really cool to just see how he was outplaying this man. And every time I was like, okay, this is the spot he's going to die, I was like, okay, he found a way to avoid getting killed. So I have to say, I honestly didn't see him get mowed down. I honestly thought, like, the entire fight, I was waiting for him to die. And it wasn't until the moment where he outplayed, or at least I thought he outplayed, where the magnetism actually went in his favor. I was like, okay, I guess he's not going to make it to the end stages, and then Aerosmith blows him away. I didn't see that coming. It really subverted my expectations, because I think it was deliberate to make you feel like this entire fight, there's no way Metallica's going to win. And then at the last moment, after he feels like, okay, it looks like the premonition's right, he's not going to be able to avoid this, like his head's going to be exploded, he has no more cards up his sleeve, the iron's all gone from his body, he essentially isn't breathing. I like that. It was such an unexpected and just disappointing and also exciting moment to see my favorite stand user and just overall stand get killed. Like, honestly, like, he was only around for a short while, but I like this man a whole lot. It was really disappointing, but I guess it's better to go out on a bang and a high note than rather drag it out and have a couple of lackluster fights and moments throughout this series. I mean, it's a shame. The Hitman team's now gone, but god damn, they were definitely the best antagonist group we've seen in JoJo up till now, and it'll be hard for future parts to compete with this group, I honestly think, because I felt like I got to know them the same way I got to know just Bruno and Giorno's group here, and you don't get to say that with JoJo too often. Visually, it was ridiculous, the blood, just the way they were detailing Metallica, these little kind of like, I don't know, it was just kind of cute and adorable and a little creep out when I was seeing how they were kind of animating the blood kind of turning alive with Metallica kind of attaching things. Holy hell, this episode had me feeling a whole lot of things. I understand the hype. I understand all the hype for all these battles that people are like, this is finally the thing, I've been waiting years to see this animated. And David Production are not letting up. They love this part 100%. There's no debate there. They love this part, and you can tell the director is having an absolute blast bringing this series to life. And it is just so great. I'm super curious though, for manga readers, like, I know this fight was hyped up to be one of the most brutal, or easily the most brutal fight in JoJo up to this point. How did you feel about David Production animating this? Because for me personally, I felt it was disturbing, like, especially when you see scenes where, like, you're seeing scissors form in his throat. It's freaking creepy, it's disturbing, and you kind of want to grab your own throat when you're watching it. I really thought, like, there was these, like, subtle details to really make it feel like there actually was scissors forming and slowly opening up. So when you read it in the manga, obviously you guys probably thought it was brutal, but how did you find David's production and how they animated this and kind of brought it to life? Because for an anime original like myself, it was disturbing, but I'm curious to see if it lived up to your hype or if it was lackluster for one reason or another. And for anime originals, what did you think? Is this one of your favorite stands, if not your favorite stands, or what the hell are you feeling with this ridiculous part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Let me know down in the comment section below. And be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.